Hello YouTube, we are back and I am so excited about it. So let's get into where I've been, what this is going to look like, and what you guys can expect from my page because it's been almost a year and a half since I have posted on here, which is insane. I am super excited to hop back into this and it's gonna look a little bit different. So I started my YouTube channel before I really had found my niche on my other social media platforms, and then I found them, which was super exciting. And because of that, I kind of took a step back from YouTube. We have gotten the niche down and I am super excited to bring it over to here on YouTube for you guys. So we're going to be talking about being a Christian in the bookish space and kind of what that looks like. I'm going to be talking about different content guides for popular book series. I specifically read a lot of secular books as a Christian, and there are a lot of other Christians that I have found that are also kind of navigating their faith and what they are okay with reading and what they're not okay with reading based on the Bible and their certain convictions and temptation points and what's okay and what isn't okay. So I try and give some overview and content guides for you guys so that you can really just go into books with a confidence that it's not going to bother you, or decide not to pick up a book with confidence because you think it might bother you. So with that, I want to be super clear that the point of this channel is not specifically to be condemning anybody for what they're reading, judging anybody for what they're reading, telling you what you are and are not allowed to read. That is not up to me. That is up to you, and you get to decide that between you and God. But I just have noticed a lot of people who don't know where to start, or they think that something might be fine, but they don't know what content's in it. So I kind of do some of the legwork to try and give you guys that content so that you can make that informed decision between you and God. Over on my TikTok and Instagram, you will find videos that are typically under 3 minutes long that talk about certain topics within these popular books. They're very quick, and because of that, I can't go super in depth to any like scenes or specifics that happen. So that's kind of why I wanted to bring this over here on YouTube. I want to get more in depth. I want to give you guys thorough, long content guides that literally tell you almost everything that could bother you within this book without being super spoiler heavy. So I try and give you guys the content without actually talking about the plot of the book unless it is like absolutely necessary, but I will always preface that beforehand so that you guys know. But in general, you're just going to hear about the different topics. If I'm talking about something specific that could bother you and it's something big that happens to a character, I will not tell you the character's name. I will not tell you who it's happening to, because I do want to keep this as spoiler free as possible, because I still want you guys to be able to enjoy these books. Another thing is, I of course feel more comfortable talking about the books that I have personally read because I know everything that's in the book and I can very easily talk about and kind of guide on that. But there are some super popular books out there that I do not feel comfortable reading, and that's kind of the point of this. So with that, if I do have a lot of requests for a certain book, or there's a certain book that's really buzzing that you guys want to know about, I will do my best, if it's one that I've decided I'm not reading, to kind of do the legwork and research, watching other videos, looking up articles online, things like that, and just get that information for you guys so that I can kind of condense it and put it into one spot for you, so that you can continue to go in. And I'll always talk about in every video if, for me personally, I decided if I was or wasn't going to read it. Now again, this is just me sharing my experience with you guys, but this is not for me to pressure you into reading something that you don't want to read, or vice versa, telling you that you can't read something if it's something that you feel okay with reading. I definitely do think that there are lines that are like very clear. Obviously, there are things that are set out in the Bible that as Christians we are supposed to be careful of and we are supposed to not do and entertain. However, I'm not going to tell you what to do, ever. I'm never going to tell you what to do. And also, these content guides, while they are coming from my Christian perspective, obviously, these are coming from my faith and my relationship with God and everything that I have learned in the Bible. I would love it if there were other people who weren't Christian who are watching my videos as well. This is obviously geared towards my faith, but it's not to exclude anybody who just wants a content guide. There are a lot of people who just have different tolerances for what's in books, so they pick and choose what they're going to read because of that. And I've had a lot of people on my other social media channels say that my guides have been helpful to them and they're not Christian, and that is literally the biggest compliment. I want to be able to connect with people regardless of their their faith, politics, religion, gender, anything like that. So let's get into what you can expect to get kind of info on within each of my reviews. I do predominantly do this for like fantasy romance books, but I will do some contemporary romance. I will potentially do some like historical fiction books, things like that. So within all of my videos, these are the topics that you are going to get reviews on. So you are going to first be getting a spice guide, obviously. Sometimes that will look like, here's the chapters that it hits in, depending on if I've recently read the book or how I was reading it. Like if I was audiobooking it versus physically reading it, I will have actual like skip lines for you guys. So it just kind of depends with that. I'm not doing that for all of them because some I am listening to an audiobook and I can't pause while I'm driving and write it down, but you will get an overview of the amount of spice within it. So it's going to range anywhere from completely closed door, you're good, to there are 3 to 4 scenes in it and they aren't skippable, they're plot critical. Typically, just so you guys kind of know my range, I am typically somebody who can go up to like 3 or 4 plus, sometimes more scenes, depending how long the book is, as long as they're not like plot propelled. And then I am somebody who skips when it gets too graphic. So if it gets too graphic for me and I'm like, this is just too much, there's too many descriptors, I don't need to be reading this, then I will skip it. But I will read up until I get to that point. It is not a huge temptation that I've dealt with, so that's why I'm able to do that. That is not me giving advice to you guys for what you should do, because there are people who have struggled super, super heavily with sexual temptation and immorality. And if you are one of those, then you probably shouldn't pick up a romance book at all. When it comes to gore and war, I'm going to talk about if the gore or war aspect is specifically super descriptive. So if there is a war, you'll know about it, that there is one happening. And with that comes obviously war and gore. Sometimes authors are super, super descriptive. Sometimes they're not. So that's something that I will note for you guys. Within this section, I'll also talk about if there are any like super in-depth graphic or long torture scenes. I think that's also really important because that gore aspect, as well as stuff like medical mutilation, things like that. Magic system, I think, is a biggest one. I think spice and magic system are the two that most Christians often get bothered about. So I talked about the spice. When it comes to magic system, there are a couple different ways that I talk about this. For me personally, I'm okay with reading magic systems as long as they're fully fictional, for the most part. If it is heavily, heavily influenced by like Greek mythology or modern day witchcraft specifically, and I mean like heavily influenced in the sense of it's almost identical and we're like seancing and chanting and like on-page spells and things like that, that's kind of a line for me, even if it is in a fictional setting. But for me specifically, fictional settings I am typically fine with. So as long as it's super fictionalized, it is a completely made up magic system, it does not represent modern day witchcraft specifically, I'm typically okay. That is my line. Some people are not okay with fictional witchcraft at all, which I totally understand, especially if that's something that you've dealt with in the past or you've been involved with in the past. It makes sense that you would not want to read about those things. So I will talk to you about kind of the origin, if I can find it or I know it, of the magic system. I will talk about if there are witches, and I will talk about if they are fictional witches or if they are like modern day witches and there's like on-page spells and things like that. Talk about if there's any sort of like potions or if it's more so like X-Men, like people just have powers, like fairy powers, things like that. You'll get a really in-depth overview of kind of what the magic system looks like in there. And with the magic system, I feel like the god system ties into that pretty heavily. For me, it's going to be a very similar approach when it comes to the god system. If it is a completely fictional, made up world, then typically I'm fine. Even if there are active gods, there are different gods, like a bunch of different gods, things like that, I'm usually okay. Now, some people aren't. Some people are like, I don't want there to be any religion other than Christianity or no religion at all. I am not like that. I'm okay if there is fictionalized religion. I'm okay if there are churches, if they're praying to gods, things like that, as long as they are fictional. If they are not fictional, that's when I kind of start to pull back a little bit. I will also let you guys know if the god system is like active gods, so they're like in the story and they're contributing to the plot and things, or if they're just like a god system that the characters speak about or maybe pray to, but they're not actually active within the world or the story. Those things will be noted as well. I will also talk about if there are any specific like magical creatures or anything like that. If there are like vampires, werewolves, all of those type of things, this is kind of where those would come up. With that, I also will always point out if there is any sort of like underworld or hell figure, demonic figures, things like that. For me, I'm okay to read books that do have some sort of underworld or hell in them as long as that is seen as bad and not seen as good. If it's seen as good, that's when I'm like, ooh, like why are we romanticizing that? Same thing with demons. I'm fine if there are demons in the book. Like I do not care if people are being possessed because ultimately I think that stuff is real and happens today. But it does need to be seen as bad. So it can't be seen as like a good thing. It needs to be something that the characters are working towards not being a problem or working against. For me, there are some books where there's definitely gray areas because sometimes it's like, oh, hell is bad, but there is a different figure that's even worse. And so we're temporarily teaming up and then we're going to never speak to them again. I don't like that still, obviously. I am thinking of a specific book if you can't tell. I do continue typically if I'm already within the story within that, but if it starts out like that, then I usually just won't pick it up at all. And then the other sections are going to be kind of the smaller ones. So I'll talk to you about if there is like a lot of cussing, like overly done cussing, you guys will know about that. You guys will know about if there's any like abuse going on, whether that be SA, emotional abuse, physical abuse, domestic abuse, things like that. I'll point out just stuff that could be triggering to people. And then the last one is typically not going to be in a fantasy setting, but within romance books, I will usually talk about the morality of the characters. And the reason why I do this within romance books and not within fantasy books is because I feel like the circumstances within fantasy books typically call for people being a little less morally sound because they are in these like crazy other world, like not realistic situations that we deal with today. While within a romance book, they're typically in modern day. They're in the normal world. There's usually no like fake god system going on, things like that. So I will try and tell you guys in more so romance books or like general fiction books if characters are morally gray. You guys are probably wondering, so what won't you read, Haley? There's a lot I won't read. Mainly it's going to be stuff that is super occult focused, placed in modern day or not. Just super heavily like new agey, witchcrafty, modern day type stuff I won't read. I also will not read thrillers, guys. I used to read thrillers and like sometimes I still get that pull too. If it is something that is like just maybe like a romantic suspense, like I can do that. I get really bad nightmares. It is something that has just been a lot that I've dealt with more recently. So I recently made the decision to step away from reading any sort of horror thriller type books. I'll still read books with darker themes, but I won't read them if they are super heavy in that thrill aspect. But other than that, most things you will probably hear on here. I will also be giving book recommendations on here. There's going to be a lot of different videos coming. Hopefully one day I'll get into the vlogs. Long form vlog content actually kind of terrifies me to make because it takes so long to edit. So we'll see, guys. But I'm really excited to start talking to you guys about these things. My first plan is to start rereading the ACOTAR series and do kind of some really, really in-depth review guides and overviews of all of the things, especially with the new books coming out. I personally read them. Some Christians are really bent out of shape about that, which is fine. But I am here to talk to the people who are interested in reading them and let you guys know what's in it, if you can skip it, if you can't skip it, so you can make an informed decision on if it's something that you want to read or not. So I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening, and I'm excited to hop into this new content, and stay tuned.